A Palestinian activist in New York has been arrested and now they're trying to deport him. Why? Well, because he's a threat to national security. And for some reason, our friends in the media insist constantly coming to the defense of absolutely terrible people. And I'm convinced 90% of the time they have absolutely no idea why they're actually coming to their defense. They're just doing it instinctively. Donald Trump says, this guy's bad. They say, oh, he must be good. And the defenders of free speech here have found a lot of things to defend when it comes to free speech lately. One of those things, of course, is the attacking of auto dealerships. Yes, that happened. Maybe we'll play that clip for you here in a little bit. But they're also defending, like I said before, a Palestinian activist who is engaged in a lot of anti-Semitism and the destruction of Western civilization. Abby Phillip of CNN kind of pretends she doesn't understand this and gets owned once again. Let's watch the clip.
He's a resident alien. He can be deported under U.S. law for if the Secretary of State has any reasonable ground to believe he would have a potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequence. And you mentioned the student organization. The student organization put out. Let me finish.
But before you move on, because I think that's a really important point, right? That's the statute that they're using.
Yeah.
Have you seen any evidence to suggest that there is actually a serious reason to believe that this student is going to be a threat to national security?
Now, she says it sarcastically, like, oh, you don't have any evidence that there's an actual threat there. Who would suggest such a thing, that there'd be a threat here? That's just absolutely ridiculous. Look what you're saying. Look at what you're saying, man. You cannot say these things. And I think it's pretty clear that, yeah, there is an argument to be made where this individual is a threat to national security. And Scott Jennings is going to make that argument. But you'll notice the attempt here is always the same. The attempt is to say, well, there's really not that big of a deal. There's really nothing to see here. This isn't a big deal. And everything is like sort of an overblown situation. Even when it clearly is not an overblown situation, they want to make that into the case. And it's kind of embarrassing. But again, I don't think they get that they're being embarrassed. As Abby Phillip constantly sounds like she doesn't know what's happening on her own television show.
I've certainly watched the abomination that's gone on at Columbia and Barnard and other places. And I will just tell you,
and I'll
just tell you that
I'm not going to let you move on because this is the
I'll tell you why it's a threat to national security if you let me answer you.
See, she won't even let him speak. She thinks she has some sort of gotcha here, but all of that is predicated on what? It's all predicated on her not understanding what is happening on her own television show. Just look at how dumb this looks to anyone with any common sense. And he's going to own her here, and we all know that. He knows it. Everyone knows it.
Scott.
Do you want me to answer you or not?
Okay.
His organization says we are dedicated fighting for the total eradication of Western civilization. Okay. He's not a citizen. He doesn't need to be here.
So, okay, is there any sign that he's a threat to national security? Is there any sign? Yeah, he wants to eradicate Western civilization. Now, surely they would just eat this and say, okay, maybe we shouldn't be defending this guy. But he is the celebrity of the day for the left because he is sideways with the Trump administration. So she's going to have to defend him. She's got to come out and defend this guy 100%. It's a requirement. She's going to do it like a dummy. This is what she wants to do on her own television show where she picks the topics.
You just described him having viewpoints that you disagree with. Again, is that enough to have someone lose their rights in this country?
He has viewpoints that, in my opinion, jeopardize the security of the United States.
But how?
He is obviously a radical who is here to foment.
No, he's not a radical at all.
He's violence against the United States government.
He wants to destroy Western civilization.
You're saying eradicate Western civilization doesn't make you a radical?
Has he acted in any way that is violence against the United States?
Yes, he's organized protests that are anti-Semitic at Columbia, and they've been harassing Jewish students. What are we talking about here? And he's taken money from Islamic terrorists and those groups that support them. What are we?
Government, as you just said.
I think these protests and the violence they have fomented and the intimidation and fear against the Jewish kids on these campuses is absolutely an act of
But you're-
insurrection against the United
Okay,
States.
all
I don't think
Here's
any-
the American speech, Scott. That's enough.
Look,
Yes.
look, what they have engaged
The guy's not American, by the way.
in is a clear threat to the United States. And if you want the United States to be overrun by radicals the way Europe has,
What is
be
the-
my guest.
what
But
is-
I think the president needs to
but
stand up for
Scott-
the integrity of the
Scott,
United
what
States.
is the threat?
The threat of our
The
country
threat
being
is a
and our college
is-
campuses being overrun by radicals who are trying to run Jewish kids off of campuses
So-
and
They're
not
anybody
trying to
else who
run Jewish
disagree.
kids
Yes,
off
they
of-
are.
Oh, yes,
In
they are.
UCLA.
No,
At
they're not.
UCLA.
First of all,
they wouldn't even
they
let
were-
them go to
first
class.
of all,
That's absolutely what they said their goal was. That was their suggestion. They're not letting people enter campus or classrooms or any of that stuff. Why are we pretending this is, again, why would the left defend this guy? Why? What's the purpose?
they were
Columbia is an abomination.
First of all, there were violent counter protests at
Oh,
UCLA
my God.
that were done by Jewish organizations.
No, both sides.
Oh,
did.
my God.
Anti-Semitism
I'm-
is a
whoa,
scourge on
oh
this
my
country. Do
gosh.
not
It
both
absolutely
sides.
is.
Is that it is not clear that this particular student has engaged in the specific actions that he was talking about. And you've shown me no evidence of that either.
Is Scott Jennings like trying the case here? I mean, is there some sort of thing? And by the way, they've made up this metric that doesn't exist. Like, you have to show me. You have to show. Why? Why exactly do you have to be shown? What exactly is the reason that you're supposed to be shown this? This is made up. You don't have to show this at all. He's not an American citizen. He's in this country on a green card. It can be revoked at the whim of the State Department. Period. You've made up a metric and then you're demanding Scott Jennings meet it. And when he does, you say, well, that doesn't count. Pathetic.
Okay, well, guess what? He is not a citizen. If he were a citizen, I might feel differently. He's a guest in this country.
Okay.
It's my view,
So in other
and
words,
it's the
you
Trump
don't
administration.
have proof, but it doesn't matter.
No, I didn't walk in here with my gumshoe investigative case, Abby. But here's what I do think: this guy's
Well,
running
you're
an
saying that-
organization at Columbia
Well,
that
you're
has
saying that
ruined
you're
two
saying that
solid
someone
years
should
of people's
be
lives.
deported
Yes.
based on allegations that you have not substantiated.
I think he should be deported based on what
Okay.
the Trump administration
You
has
think he
already
should be
identified. He is a threat to
deported
the national
based
security.
on-
of the United States.
based
here's
on
the
his affiliation.
statute you quoted, an obscure statute, old statute that's being used, is about being against
And now it's an old statute. By the way, so now we've established that it is, in fact, a statute, but it's an old statute. So now it doesn't matter because of the age. And again, Anna Navarro, former Republican, right? Like, that's her whole shtick here. She's taking a position that anti-Semites and monsters should stay in the country because Donald Trump wants them out. And that's it. That's it. That is the sole argument here for Anna Navarro. That's it.
U.S. foreign policy, right? So, for example, when I was part of protests in Miami, when the Clinton administration and Janet Reno returned Elian Gonzalez to Cuba, is that
Were you trying to eradicate Western civilization?
No,
It's such an easy thing to take apart. What an idiot. You were not protesting and saying take down Western civilization. You were actually advocating for Western civilization and Elian Gonzalez being allowed to stay here. You moron. But again, there is no intellectual honesty here. It is solely, I disagree with your point, so I'm going to argue anything I possibly can, even though it doesn't make any sense.
I was trying to stop the U.S. government, and I was protesting against what the U.S. government had done. I was
Were you
protesting.
occupying buildings?
I was protesting.
Were you fomenting
I
violence?
was doing what that.
Were you inciting others to engage in
I was doing
violence?
what that statute
Were you
said.
chasing
I was
people
against
around?
U.S. foreign policy.
Were you
at the time.
intimidating people?
Okay,
We
Scott.
were shutting
No.
down streets for
My
them.
view is that we're
By the way, and you heard Abby Phillips try to come in here and stop it. She can't control her own show. She had no idea what to do. Because Scott Jennings is just taking on people piece by piece and picking them apart. How pathetic for these people. These people are paid for this, by the way.
in a fight for the future of Western civilization. This guy's on the wrong side of it, and he don't need to be here.
That's it. It's a great point. He nailed it. That's exactly correct. It is exactly correct. He is 100% correct. He is 100% right. And almost everybody knows it. But here they are attempting to pretend. And by the way, keep this in mind. I cannot stress this enough. These people don't actually believe this stuff. They're just doing theater. That is all they're doing. This is theater for them. They are attempting to make it appear that they believe this stuff, but everybody knows they do not believe this stuff. And it's unfortunate for them because they have every ability in the world to at least attempt to make an argument here and not have Scott Jennings just beat them to death over and over and over again on cable news.